I made these roses a little over a year on my YouTube channel. It was one of the very first videos I ever made. I didn't know how to make videos. I still don't know how to make videos, but it was an attempt at making a vlog. And ever since then, I have gotten comments about how all of you want a legitimate tutorial on how to make these. And well, today, my friend, you are in luck because I have heard all of you, every single one of you, on how you want an actual tutorial on how to make these roses that is first off in English, and secondly, is a slow tutorial that you can follow. So that's what we're gonna do today. Okay, so let's talk supplies and what you're going to need to actually create your flowers. First off, you're going to need craft foam of this size is all I'm using, but you could get a bigger one if you wanted to. Also, for this particular tutorial, color does not matter to me, so I'm just using whatever I have available. If by chance color of your flower is like the most important thing to you, make sure you get the right color of foam, like order it off of Amazon or whatever you need to get the right color that you want for your flower, because trust me, it is a big pain in the butt to actually spray paint all of these to be the right color. So make sure you do that beforehand, because I already did it and I just want to tell you in advance.
No! God, please, no! No!
The second thing you're going to need is a ton of glue sticks, especially if you're making multiple flowers. You're going to go through a lot. So just have that loaded up. You're going to need a hot glue gun, of course, to go with a glue stick. You're going to need scissors, and you're going to need a heat gun or a hair dryer. But this will work better for you because it does sit up on its own. So that is everything you're going to need for this project. And then if by chance you want to actually connect your flower to a PVC pipe so that they stand on their own, like if you wanted to stick them in the ground or something, or a pot or something, so they stand up on their own, get yourself a PVC pipe cap. I'll put a picture of what that looks like here because I don't have one today. So get yourself one of those and I will show you how to put that in later. All right, so your next step is to cut all of your petals out. Now it is important to keep in mind, I did list numbers for how many petals that you do need, but if you want a bigger, fuller flower, maybe cut a little bit more of the larger flower petals. That will kind of puff out your flower at the end, and you can always make more if you need them, but just to keep that in mind, if you want a bigger flower, cut more of the larger ones out. Okay, so first things first is we need to assemble the base of the flower, and that is where the smaller little tiny ones come into play. So this is your smallest size. You're going to take your hot glue gun and you're literally going to just fold each one into kind of like a shape like this. It kind of reminds me of a flower itself. I can't remember the exact flower, peace lily maybe, that this looks like, but you are going to basically fold it into like a tube. And then you're going to take the next piece and you're going to, over the front, layer over that so that it kind of looks like something like this. Okay, so once you have this, you're going to do the same thing again with another petal. You're just going to take it, lay it over top of your petal, and place it into place just like that. And essentially, this is kind of the same process for like the whole flower building experience until you get to like the large petal, then it kind of changes a little bit. So your next step again is to add more flower pieces around the flower piece you already have. And if you are curious, I'm only gluing up to a certain point. I'm only gluing my flower up to about there. And you're looking for something like this so far. And then I still have 2 more pieces to add, so I'm going to add those until we change sizes. Now, an option here, if you want to, is to take your heat gun and kind of foam or fold back some of these flower edges, because anytime you put heat onto a foam product, it's going to curl. That's just its natural thing it's going to do. So if you want these kind of to kind of bend up and out like that, you will take your heat gun to them. I do this in the very end because I just think it's easier. But if you don't want the like the idea of doing that while like you have your whole giant flower, I would do it now before you continue to build up. And the same thing with every single layer from here on out. If you don't want to do that, do it now. Okay, so it's time for our next petal size. So I'm going to take this petal, and where the seam is on this flower right here, I'm going to take that petal and cover that seam. And I'm also going to kind of push my flower petal further down than the edge of the flower is, and that is because I am going to start to build the flower out. And then I'm going to take the other one and I'm going to put it on the opposite side of that flower petal. So it should look something kind of like this. So this is when, if you by chance want to add in like the little piece that goes in the flower so that you can keep it like on a PVC pipe, this is where you're going to add it. So you see this little spot here that's being created by having your flower petals just a little lower than your original petals you were building. You're going to take that cap and you're going to glue it in right here. And you're just going to keep building around that cap for the rest of your flower. It might kind of be further in your flower as you continue to build. For example, if we look at this flower, the cap is literally hidden all the way back here. So as you build your flower, it will continue to push out. You won't see the cap at all. And then you can put your flower stem in and you won't notice it. But that's how you keep the flower safely attached to the cap, is you have it hidden in this very first layer. Make sure you glue it very nicely, and with each layer you're going to continue to build around that cap. So it's going to go right there. All right, if you are not adding a cap, disregard all of that and just keep adding your flower petals. Now instead of doing it on the same side, you're going to add this next petal on this side so that you're just covering up that seam right there. So you're going to start going in a circle around your seams of your flower. And then you're going to do the same thing on the other side. So you're covering this seam with your flower petal and you're going to glue it there, kind of covering everything. Now we're going to keep going with our flower petals. We're just going to keep overlaying them from the opposite sides. So it should look something like that. I'm just going to hold it there until it seems like it is good to go. Now what I am going to start to do is I'm going to get my heat gun now, because I think it's a good time to kind of flex these petals out so they're a little bit more curved. Alright, so my heat gun is plugged in and literally I'm going to turn it to its low setting, and then I'm just going to blow hot air on it and let the flower petals curl a little bit. I don't want it to do it too much, but just enough so that it is a little less straight and sturdy looking. So it is important to note that foam will stay whatever way that it cools back at. So if you want these to stay kind of like more curved, you might need to hold them down just a little bit until they get to the right temperature to not curl back on their own. Also, if by chance you cut anything that has like a really odd edge and you don't love it, heating your foam is a really good way to seal it and fix kind of those weird spots, because it kind of melds into itself a little bit. So if you have like an odd cut that you don't love, this can kind of fix it. Anytime you're making anything with foam, it is always a great idea to heat gun it just to seal it. So just a little note there. I guess also one more thing. You are using hot glue on this, and you are using a heat gun on top of your hot glue that might already be kind of dry or cool and glued. By adding heat to your flower, you are reheating your glue, so some of your glue might come back to be a little bit more gooey. So just keep that in mind when you're doing this, because you can unglue some things. Okay, so this next part is going to involve your heat gun. We're going to move to the next two flower petals, but they kind of involve some pre-shaping before we add them to our flower. So you're going to grab your heat gun and a mask, because these do get off a little bit of fumes as you are heating them. You want to take your petal as you're going like this and kind of pull and stretch it a little bit so that it kind of just creates like a flower petal look. So there'll be kind of like a divot here in the middle of the flower petal, and then don't worry about it kind of necessarily curling over just yet, because we're going to do that later whenever we heat gun the flower itself. But I'm going to shape all of my flower petals now so that you can kind of see how that looks. I am going to speed this up because there's a lot of flower petals that I have to do. So I will see you back here when they're all done. Little pro tip when it comes to doing the large flower ones, like the large petals of your flower. If you have something, I happen to have an Easter egg here because it is Easter time here in a little bit, so Michael's is full of things. But if you have something kind of like shaped like this at the top of it, it could just be a bowl. If you take your flower petal after you have heat gunned it and just pull it over something like this, it makes it look a lot more like a flower petal instead of using your palm. So if you have something like this, or just a bowl, or something that is circular and that you can just kind of push something down on, that is a great option. So once we're all done with shaping our petals, it is time to keep gluing. So I am going to move up to my next flower petal shape, which is not these. It is all these yellow ones. And I am literally just going to start doing the same thing we were doing before, and I am going to just glue as I would like them to sit. And again, this pattern is up to you. You can continue to do every other, or you can go in a circle. Do what feels right to you, or what looks good to you, because ultimately it is your flower. However you want it to look is perfect. So here's a little close-up of the flower right now. The next step is to use our last flower petal size. So we're going to take our flower petals that we've already pre-formed or pre-shaped, and we are going to place them on the bottoms of the flower. So obviously it's going to come out further than the rest of them, and it's going to kind of go like that. So here's my new one, and you're just going to kind of want to go in a circle with this so that you're covering all the spots and doing your best to create a nicer flower bottom. You can always cover this with something else, like if you want to create leaves or something, you can always cover this. So don't be like too crazy about it, but just kind of go in a circle with your bottom leaves. I mean petals. Go in a circle with your bottom petals. And if you want a more flower, feel free to add more petals. It doesn't have to, like, you can just continue to add petals if you want more bigger flowers. So just add as much as you want. And our last step is to heat gun all the edges and curl all of the petals to be exactly what they should be, so kind of curved out. This step is probably the most fun because you're really shaping everything to be what you want it to. So I am going to grab my heat gun and do that now and kind of show you how that looks like. And that, my friends, is how you make your own flowers out of craft foam. Now, just a couple of things to keep in mind to remember when you're making this. If you want your flower to be fuller, add more petals. If you want it to be smaller, take petals away. If you want different colors, make sure you get the right colors to use, because it is a pain in the butt to spray paint this, like I mentioned before. It's just when you spray paint it, you have to kind of go underneath all the petals as well, and it's just a whole thing. So I would recommend just getting the color of foam that you really want before you make the petals, or paint them before you put them on your flower. Some other tips that I would say is when you're heat gunning something and it's curling too much, don't be afraid to just kind of hold it in place once it's not as hot and like you can touch it, because it will just stay where you put it. So as long as you kind of direct it where you want it to be, as soon as it's cool, it will stay exactly as you left it. So that means anything you're trying to do here is all completely customizable. You can curve anything the way you want it. So let's say something didn't curl as much as you wanted it to. If it's still like super hot, you can curl it yourself and keep it there, and it will be the right amount that you had envisioned in your head. To finish off your flower, like I did in my first video, I just used PVC pipe, and I painted those green, and I put my PVC pipe into my flower using the PVC pipe cap. If by chance you don't have a PVC pipe cap right now and you just wanted a flower, and then later you decide that you want to add that, you have the ability to add it. Like, there's enough space in there that you can just add whatever you want into the bottom of the flower and use it from there. You could also just glue a PVC pipe into your flower if you don't want to like disconnect them. For me, that was not an option because to store them, I needed them to come apart. So that is all something that you could do. You could literally just put the pipe in there and glue it and call it a day. So all the options are up to you. But that is how I built all my flowers. I hope that you enjoyed it and it answered any questions that you had about building flowers like this. If by chance you still do have questions, feel free to put them below and I will try my best to answer all of your questions. But that was pretty fun. So I might make more tutorials like this later, but until then, I hope that you enjoyed yourself, you're making cool flowers, and you are spending plenty of time doing crafty things. So I will see you next time, and I hope you have a lovely week.